The room is silent, but the mind isn't. Thoughts are loud. They argue, accuse, and replay moments that no longer exist. You think you're sitting still, but inside, something is fighting. Every sound feels personal. Every look feels like judgment. Every silence feels like rejection. You tell yourself you're fine, but your emotions know otherwise. Anger surges like fire through your chest. Anxiety whispers in your ear that you're not enough. Sadness moves like a shadow, slow and heavy, wrapping itself around you until breathing feels like effort. We live like this, reacting, defending, explaining, believing that the world around us is responsible for what we feel within. We tell ourselves stories. They made me angry. That failure ruined me. This situation broke me. But the truth is far more unsettling. The world doesn't make us feel anything. It only reveals what's already inside. The human mind is the most powerful instrument ever known, and the most dangerous when left untrained. It interprets, judges, compares, and condemns without pause. Most people never question this voice because they mistake it for themselves. But the voice in your head is not you. It's a mirror reflecting every fear, every wound, every unresolved emotion you've carried since childhood. Think about it. Someone insults you, the words land like arrows. But those words only hurt because your mind gives them meaning. The same insult spoken to someone else might feel weightless. But because they don't attach their identity to it. You do. And that attachment turns a sound into suffering. That's the unseen chain. The illusion that life happens to you, rather than through you. You chase control, over others, over circumstances, over how the world treats you, but every attempt at control only tightens the chains around your mind. The more you resist emotion, the more it owns you. The more you chase peace, the further it runs. Because peace isn't something to find, it's something to realize. It's what's left when the mind stops fighting itself. We've been taught to manage emotions like enemies. Suppress anger, avoid sadness, distract from fear. But emotions are not meant to be managed, they're meant to be understood. They are signals from the deeper self, trying to tell you where you're still asleep. Yet, we drown them in noise, constant scrolling, endless work, perpetual conversation, anything to avoid silence. Because silence exposes the truth, the storm was never outside. It was always within. Watch people today, running, reacting, raging. Everyone trapped in the same invisible cycle. They think they're living, but most are just responding. Responding to emotion after emotion, thought after thought, without a moment of awareness in between. When you're ruled by emotion, you live in fragments. One moment you're angry, the next you regret it. One day you're confident, the next you collapse under doubt. Your identity becomes unstable, constantly shaped by whatever feeling takes hold next. You lose yourself, not in the world, but in your own mind. And this is the tragedy. The modern human believes they are free. They can travel anywhere, buy anything, express everything, but still, they remain prisoners of an untrained consciousness. A slave to reaction. Look closely at your own life. How many decisions have you made not out of clarity, but out of fear? How many relationships have you broken not because of truth, but because of anger? How many dreams have you abandoned because doubt whispered louder than courage? Every emotion has a chain attached, and every chain is self-forged. The truth is simple, but it demands courage to face. Until you master your mind, you will remain a slave to emotion. You will mistake reaction for truth, fear for intuition, comfort for peace. And every time you think you've escaped, you'll find yourself back in the same emotional loop. Different people, different settings, same patterns. But there is another way. A way beyond reaction. Beyond the endless noise of thoughts that tell you who you are. It begins with a single realization that you are not the storm. You are the awareness behind it. You are not your emotions. You are the space in which they appear and disappear. The mind is a wild horse. Emotion is its fire. If you don't learn to ride it, it drags you through chaos. But once you do, once you see it clearly, the same fire that once consumed you can light your path. And so, the question isn't how to escape emotion. It's how to stop being ruled by it. Because freedom isn't found in changing your feelings. Freedom begins the moment you realize you are not them. And that's where mastery begins, not in control, but in awareness. Not in silence, but in seeing. Until then, you are not living freely. You are simply reacting. And that's not life, that's survival. The next breath is quiet. The world outside hasn't changed. But something within you has. You've begun to see the cage, and once you see it, you can no longer pretend you're free. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. But until you learn to see clearly, your emotions will own you. Emotion is a strange master. It arrives uninvited, takes control, and vanishes as if nothing ever happened. One moment you're calm, and the next, you're drowning in rage, jealousy, or despair. You say things you don't mean, do things you later regret, and make choices that pull you further away from who you truly are. Then, when the wave passes, you look back and wonder, what just happened to me? What happened is simple, your mind was hijacked. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people never realize that the emotions that rule them are not accidents of personality, they are reflections of the unseen forces buried in the psyche, the shadow, as Jung called it. The parts of yourself you've disowned, the anger you never expressed, the fear you never faced, the shame you buried deep, they do not disappear. They wait. And when triggered, they rise, seizing control in an instant. You believe you're angry because someone disrespected you. But the truth is, that anger is ancient. It's the same emotion you felt as a child when you weren't heard. It's the same wound repeating itself, disguised by a new face, a new moment. The situation didn't create your emotion, it merely revealed what was already waiting inside. Nietzsche spoke of self-overcoming, the idea that man's greatest task is to transcend himself. Not to destroy emotion, but to rise above the tyranny of his lower instincts. He warned that without this inner evolution, we remain creatures of reaction, slaves to our impulses, driven not by reason or will, but by unconscious forces we refuse to see. And perhaps that's what makes emotional slavery so dangerous. It hides in plain sight. It disguises itself as passion, as love, as conviction. But look closely, and you'll see that most of what we call passion is just the mind's desperate attempt to escape discomfort. The urge to argue, to prove, to dominate, to seek approval, these are all subtle forms of emotional dependency. The ego thrives in this state. It feeds on emotional charge. The louder the reaction, the stronger it feels. The ego doesn't care if you're joyful or furious, it only wants to exist. And in your identification with every emotion, every fleeting thought, you keep feeding it. You keep mistaking noise for truth. Modern life amplifies this chaos. The entire system is designed to exploit the emotional mind. Social media rewards outrage, politics weaponizes fear, entertainment feeds on desire and escape. We scroll not to connect, but to distract ourselves from the silence we fear. The result is a mind in constant turbulence, overstimulated, underaware, always reacting. We've become addicts, not to substances, but to stimulation. We confuse motion for meaning, reactivity for aliveness. But in truth, this endless cycle of emotional highs and lows is not life. It's imprisonment disguised as experience. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." Yet most people never realize they have that choice, because their emotions make every moment feel absolute. When you're angry, it feels like anger is truth. When you're sad, sadness feels eternal. Emotion compresses time. It traps consciousness in a single state, making it impossible to see beyond the current feeling. This is why awareness is everything. Awareness is the doorway between reaction and choice. Without it, you live as a puppet, your strings pulled by unexamined emotions. With it, you begin to see the machinery of your own mind, and for the first time, you gain the power to step back. Imagine your mind as a battlefield. On one side are the primal forces, fear, desire, envy, rage. On the other are the higher faculties, reason, reflection, compassion, will. Most people let the battle rage without ever realizing they can step outside it. They identify with every shot fired, every wound inflicted. But the moment you realize you are the observer of the battle, not a soldier in it, the war begins to quiet. Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the concentration camps, discovered this truth in its purest form. Everything can be taken from a man, he wrote, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Even in the face of unimaginable suffering, he found the space between stimulus and response, the sacred space where mastery begins. That space is the difference between being human and being free. Yet we keep running from it. Because facing emotion without reacting feels unbearable at first. It means sitting with discomfort, watching the mind twist and turn, wanting to escape, to act, to distract. It means realizing how small you've let yourself become. But on the other side of that discomfort lies clarity, a clarity that changes everything. The problem is, no one teaches us this. We learn math, history, language, but not how to observe the mind. Not how to feel an emotion without becoming it. And so, generation after generation, we repeat the same emotional inheritance, anger passed from father to son, fear from mother to daughter. We call it personality, but it's just conditioning. When you don't master your mind, you inherit the pain of everyone who came before you. You become a vessel for the collective unconscious, repeating the same patterns, creating the same conflicts, perpetuating the same suffering. But when you begin to master your mind, something miraculous happens. The chain breaks. You stop reacting to the world and start responding to it. The same triggers that once controlled you become teachers. Every emotion becomes an opportunity to see deeper, to understand yourself more fully. You begin to notice the moments between emotion and reaction, the milliseconds where choice lives. You see anger rising and instead of lashing out, you watch it. You feel sadness forming and instead of drowning in it, you let it speak. This is not suppression, this is sovereignty. The untrained mind sees emotion as an enemy. The mastered mind sees it as a messenger. This is the essence of mastery, not control through force, but freedom through awareness. Because the truth is, emotion isn't the problem. The real problem is identification, the belief that every emotion defines who you are. Once you see that, the tyranny ends. You realize that your emotions were never chains. They were signals, pointing to the parts of you still seeking understanding. And the moment you stop fearing what arises within, you begin to reclaim your power. The mind was meant to serve you, not rule you. It was designed to think, to imagine, to create, not to imprison you in an endless loop of reaction. But when you forget who you are, you hand over the keys. You become a servant to your own mind. And that's why mastery isn't about escaping emotion, or killing desire, or silencing thought. It's about remembering your true position, not as the mind, not as the emotion, but as the consciousness behind both. The mind screams. The emotion burns. But awareness remains still. That stillness is your power. The world outside will always move. People will provoke you, circumstances will test you, losses will wound you. But none of it has to control you, unless you hand it that power. The mind was meant to serve you. But when you forget, you begin serving it. And that is the quiet tragedy of our age. A world full of people with every kind of freedom, except the one that truly matters. Freedom from themselves. Silence. That's where transformation begins. Not in control, not in discipline, not in suppression, but in stillness. For most of your life, you've been told that mastering your mind means overpowering it, silencing your emotions, forcing yourself to be calm. But true mastery is not about domination. It's about understanding. You cannot fight emotion into peace. You can only understand it into silence. The mind is like water. The more you struggle in it, the deeper you sink. The moment you stop fighting, you float. That's what awareness does. It doesn't destroy emotion, it dissolves your identification with it. For centuries, the world's greatest thinkers have pointed toward this truth in different languages. The Stoics called it apatheia, not the absence of emotion, but freedom from its grip. The Buddhists spoke of mindfulness, the ability to observe thoughts and feelings without attachment. Jung called it individuation, the integration of the unconscious self into the light of awareness. And Viktor Frankl revealed the same truth from the depths of suffering. Between stimulus and response lies the power to choose. All these paths converge on one truth: mastery begins with observation. To observe means to look at your inner world as though it doesn't belong to you. When anger rises, don't call it my anger. Just say, there is anger. When fear appears, don't say, I am afraid. Just say, fear is here. This subtle shift changes everything. You stop being the one possessed, and you become the one witnessing. Watch your emotions like waves. They rise, they peak, they fall. None of them last. What gives them power is not their existence, but your attachment to them. You chase the pleasant waves and you resist the painful ones. That's what keeps you enslaved, your refusal to let emotions simply be. Imagine standing on a shore during a storm. The waves crash, the wind howls, the sky roars, but beneath the surface, the ocean is still. That stillness is your true nature. Consciousness doesn't move when the waves of emotion rise. Only the surface of the mind does. When you identify with the surface, you feel chaos. When you return to the depth, you find peace. The art of mastery is learning to live from that depth. You begin by watching, noticing, feeling without judgment. Every emotion carries information. Anger points to violated boundaries. Sadness signals loss or disconnection. Fear exposes attachment to control. When you listen, emotion becomes teacher. When you react, it becomes master. At first, this practice feels unnatural. The mind resists observation because observation exposes its illusion of control. It wants to fix, label, solve, explain. But awareness asks for none of that. Awareness simply sees. And what it sees, it transforms. Slowly, the storm begins to settle. You realize that your emotions are not enemies. They are energy, seeking direction. When you stop fighting them, they start working for you. Anger becomes clarity. Sadness becomes depth. Fear becomes focus. Each emotion, when understood, becomes fuel for wisdom. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of alchemy. Not turning metal into gold, but transforming pain into understanding, chaos into insight. In this process, solitude becomes your greatest ally. Because silence is not emptiness, it's a mirror. When you withdraw from noise, your mind's true voice begins to surface. The emotions you've buried rise, asking to be seen. This can be uncomfortable, even terrifying. But this is the path. You cannot master what you refuse to face. Every great awakening begins with confrontation, not with the world, but with yourself. You sit down, you breathe, you listen. The noise of the mind begins to unravel, revealing layers of fear, resentment, longing. Don't run. Don't analyze. Just watch. That's where mastery takes root, in the quiet courage to stay. You begin to understand that emotions are not problems to be solved, but energies to be observed. You stop asking, why am I feeling this? And start asking, what is this feeling showing me? You stop escaping the present moment, and for the first time, you inhabit it fully, even when it hurts. This awareness changes how you move through the world. Someone insults you, and instead of collapsing into anger, you notice the emotion rising. You breathe. You see your ego wanting to defend itself. You let it speak, but you don't act on it. You remain calm not because you've suppressed your feelings, but because you've seen through them. This is power, not the power to dominate others, but the power to remain still within chaos. And this stillness grows. Slowly, you begin to see that emotion and thought are not separate. They are movements of the same mind. A thought triggers emotion, and emotion reinforces thought. When you break this loop through awareness, the mind loses its grip. You stop chasing peace and begin embodying it. Discipline takes on a new meaning. It's no longer a struggle against yourself, it's a devotion to clarity. You don't force your mind into silence, you guide it toward understanding. You don't suppress emotion, you hold space for it. The mind begins to trust you. Emotion begins to relax. And in that surrender, mastery is born. You start to experience moments of true freedom, where something that once triggered you no longer has power. Someone criticizes you, and you simply hear it. No storm. No defense. Just presence. The world remains the same, but you have changed. And here's the paradox. The more you understand your emotions, the more human you become. Not detached, not numb, but deeply alive. Because mastery is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unshakable. You can feel everything without being consumed by anything. In this state, life itself becomes a meditation. Every event, every conversation, every challenge becomes a mirror reflecting your inner world. You begin to live consciously, not reacting but responding, not escaping but experiencing. And one day, you realize something profound. The mind you once feared has become your greatest ally. The emotions that once ruled you now serve you. The same energy that once drowned you in chaos now fuels your creativity, your compassion, your depth. Because mastery is not about control, it's about harmony. The mind, the heart, and awareness moving together, no longer in conflict, but in rhythm. You don't conquer your mind by force. You conquer it by understanding. You don't silence emotion by resistance. You silence it by listening. And through this awareness, you awaken to a deeper truth, that the mind was never your enemy, and emotion was never your prison. Both were simply unmastered instruments waiting to be tuned. When you tune them, the noise turns into music. The chaos becomes rhythm. The pain becomes wisdom. And in that moment you realize, the mastery you sought was never about control. It was about remembering who you truly are, the awareness behind it all, the still point within the storm, the observer untouched by any wave. The moment you stop fighting your emotions, you begin mastering them. And in that stillness, you find the part of you that cannot be moved. Morning light filters through the window. The world outside is exactly as it was yesterday, loud, unpredictable, demanding. But something inside has changed. The mind that once reacted to every shift in the wind now observes with quiet awareness. The same sounds, the same chaos, yet it no longer owns you. That is the first sign of freedom, when life still moves wildly, but you remain still within it. You begin to see that emotional mastery isn't about escaping the world or detaching from feeling. It's about returning to yourself in the middle of it all. The noise continues, but you're no longer part of the noise. The waves rise and fall, but you've stopped mistaking yourself for the ocean's surface. You start to understand that emotion was never the enemy, it was the teacher. Every surge of fear, every ache of sadness, every flash of anger was guiding you back to awareness. Pain wasn't punishment, it was the invitation to wake up. Nietzsche called it amor fati, to love your fate. To not just accept life's storms, but to embrace them as part of your becoming. The one who masters their mind doesn't run from difficulty, they welcome it, because they know that growth hides behind discomfort. They stop asking life to be easy and instead learn how to be strong. Alan Watts spoke of surrender, of letting go of the illusion that you can control existence. The more you fight against life, the more life pushes back. But when you surrender, you flow. When you stop forcing, you align with something deeper, the intelligence that has been guiding you all along. Viktor Frankl found this truth in the darkest place imaginable. Even when everything was taken, he discovered that no one could take his ability to choose his response. That's what it means to master the mind, to realize that no matter what happens, you remain free to decide who you will be in the face of it. You begin to see that freedom isn't a destination, it's a moment-to-moment awareness. It's the quiet decision to no longer be a victim of your inner world. To stop saying, I am angry, and instead say, anger is here. To stop being the emotion and start being the witness. This shift changes everything. You start to live differently. You listen more than you speak. You act, but without rush. You feel deeply, but without drowning. You move through the world with presence, no longer seeking control, but embodying understanding. And in this stillness, you realize that nothing outside of you ever truly needed to change. The world will continue to test you, people will disappoint you, plans will fail, uncertainty will return. But now, your peace doesn't depend on any of it. You've discovered something that chaos cannot touch, the still point within, the eye of the storm. Freedom doesn't mean being unaffected, it means being unshaken. It means seeing emotion rise and fall without losing yourself in its current. It means allowing life to move through you, trusting that whatever comes is part of the unfolding of who you are meant to become. You can finally breathe again, not because the world is quieter, but because you are. Mastering your mind isn't the end of emotion. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's the realization that every emotion is energy, and every thought is temporary. You don't suppress, you don't indulge, you observe. You learn. You grow. The journey isn't about becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before emotion ruled you. The stillness that was always there beneath the noise. The awareness that watched quietly through every storm. The world will keep moving. The emotions will keep rising and falling. But you, the one who sees, the one who knows, will remain untouched. Because once you master your mind, you are no longer a slave to emotion. You are free. Not because life became easier, but because you became deeper. The screen fades to black. A final whisper echoes through the silence. The world will always test you. Emotions will rise and fall like the tide. But once you master your mind, you are free, not from life, but within it.